unfinished business. Okay, new business, discussion regarding proposed amendments relative to zoning standards for signs.
I need to step to the monitor for a moment, Madam Chair. This would be a good time for us for the bathroom break. I shouldn't be long. Let's see. Trying to do a PowerPoint. No problem is Burt Lake Marina has to put sign up for May and all winter. I thought they should be able to change this, get it over 100 square feet and put one sign. Set a public hearing for it.
Yeah.
Right.
People come here on something like 2 weeks or less, and unless there's signage that they can see, and they go,
Well, Burt Lake don't, so there's hardly any signage at all under shelter.
yeah. It's just like, first you start, and then pass all over. You know, signage is that small.
Yeah. And nothing out on 27 either, you know.
There's but no road, it's just a small one.
But between Larry Renaud and Burt, it's 50 years in that business, you know.
Yeah.
And you can't put up a sign. That would be a whole tutorial on signs. Sorry. All right, Madam Chair, Planning Commissioners, members of the public. Although we don't have a draft ordinance amendment related to signs to you, this discussion is essentially to try to get your feedback and direction, given the direction by the Board of Commissioners recently, which was essentially to look at, amending Section 1719, signs of the zoning ordinance. specifically taking a look at dimensional standards, and even more specifically, dimensional standards for freestanding or pylon signs in our commercial zoning districts. Given that, this is a good opportunity to take a look at 1719 to see if there's anything else that perhaps we should address, tie up any loose ends perhaps. I will suggest that given the current iteration of 1719 and given the work that you collectively put into amending the sign ordinance since 2015, I don't see a need for a great deal of amendment language, text changes, formatting, that sort of thing. Obviously, it's going to be something that you're going to drive, but for what my 2 cents is worth, which is, well, 2 cents, I would argue that we don't have to work through what I would consider a comprehensive amendment of 1719. The last amendment that was included in your packets regarded the now famous or infamous case, Reed versus Town of Gilbert, which clarified codes must be content neutral. That was the intent or purpose of the last amendment regarding 1719, so I don't think we need to readdress that. This effort is basically to look at dimensional standards. So I'll run through this quickly. I think, you all, given your experience, know this. Why should we regulate signs? Can be considered a quality of life issue. It's an economic development issue, balancing aesthetics, balancing the right to expression, which was addressed, public safety, economic interests, aesthetics, and so on. Preserving and enhancing property values. That is the principal endeavor of planning and zoning, is to at least maintain, but preferably enhance property values. As you know, there are new technologies that are currently being employed, and never new technologies on the horizon. We could take a look at amending 1719 to consider those. And basically, as I alluded to, this is an opportunity to reconfirm that our sign code, our sign standards, achieve our aesthetic values and goals, including economic development goals. All right, so as I pointed out, things to consider: dimensional standards, particularly in our commercial development districts and along M27 and M68 corridors, for example. So the dimensional standards would, of course, be height, maximum sign and faces. I think we should have a discussion about basing dimensional standards on linear road frontage distance. There are a number of sign ordinances that consider that when directing applicants who want to install signage. That is a considerable factor in the maximum dimensions that would be allowed in any particular or given area. Right now, this is, I guess I would consider it a bit of an oversight, if I may. 1719 currently allows up to 3 freestanding signs per parcel in our commercial development districts. In that zoning district, one is allowed up to 80 square feet of sign face. So the question becomes, well, if you allow 3 freestanding signs, each at up to 80 square feet, which would be above and beyond the 80 square feet intended for a single sign, or do we consider, say, leaving that and providing, say, an option for an applicant? Do you want additional signage at, say, a smaller dimension, scale, or is it preferable to, say, have a single sign at a larger scale or a larger size? The other thing staff has noted is, at least in Article 2, we don't have a very, detailed definition for sign or signage. That's something I think we might want to consider as we move forward here. So what does the master plan say about signs? The first bullet point regards zoning ordinance change based on master plan goals, and we've been talking about that over the last year. What can we do to advance some of the 2014 established, adopted master plan goals that haven't been achieved as of yet? One of those goals speaks to allowing for signs along rec trails, and I'm reading this verbatim from the master plan: create appropriate sign regs considering recreational trails in a similar manner to public rights of way with sign sizes appropriate for trail side placement. And to that point, bullet number 2 speaks to update the zoning provisions as they regard signage to again accommodate more potential recreational trail signage that would alert trail users to more commercial businesses in a given area. We don't have clear provisions for this type of commercial signage, so perhaps given the master plan goals, we would want to consider looking at this. The other language that regards signage in the 2014 master plan is that third bullet point: update sign standards to allow sign size to be proportional to building facade size. That's another avenue or approach that some communities use in regulating dimensional standards for signage. They take into consideration the height of the front facade, for example. So I won't belabor this. This was included in your packets. This is straight out of our ordinance. This just, this table shows or lists the various sign types in our zoning ordinance and the respective zoning districts, the number of those respective signs that are permitted in said zoning districts, and also the dimensional standards for a particular sign in the zoning district. So this is really what I would argue is going to be the crux of our discussion moving forward, is examining whether or not these dimensional standards, particularly in our commercial districts, are appropriate, given conditions, given anticipated future development. So again, this is, we're at the very front end of this, if you will. So I want to just gauge any thoughts, or get any of your thoughts with respect to signage, particularly commercial signage. Do you feel perhaps that in some instances anyway, larger signage than what is articulated here in the zoning ordinance is appropriate? Do we keep it the same? So there are a lot of questions with respect to that overarching question. again, you know, I think we're going to be focusing on the M27 and perhaps the M68 corridors, to a lesser degree M33, but particularly M27, Indian River area, of course. That's the area of the county, as you know, that sees the most permit activity and is seeing the most development pressure. So the zoning ordinance is a living document, and we have to try to at least take a look to see if, given current conditions and anticipated future conditions, whether an amendment is necessary or amendments are necessary. So I know I kind of threw a lot of, I guess, different questions at you, especially go back one. Well, here's a slide that also is pulled from the zoning ordinance. This just helps to serve, to identify the nomenclature or signage and what that signage looks like.
Well, I've got a little information that's in the ZBA decision material that's provided here. I've got a kind of a quick recap summary. All these ZBA cases fall into basically 4 categories. No, 5 categories. There's one oddball in there. Freestanding signs, wall signs, variances for right-of-way positioning, variances for front setback, and use variances. I think the one that we're really concerned about is freestanding signs. In the last 15 years, we've had 10 variance requests. 3 have been approved, 7 have been denied. If there was some consistency with the requests, I probably would have come to the ZBA, or from the ZBA to you with a request to look at the sign ordinance. But those freestanding signs really are in 4 different categories. 2 of them are in the light industrial zone, and they're basically height variance requests. I don't think we're really concerned with that because there were requests for 75-foot tall signs. So that takes 2 of them out of consideration. One of them was for a use variance in the Forest A. There were 2 parts to the variance. One of the parts was approved, the other one was denied, and they never did do anything with the sign, so that one never did anything. 2 of them were in residential areas where the limits on the sign size are really rather small, but they weren't for signs for a residence. One of them was for a church, and one of them was for a radio station, the Bishop Barrett radio station down on 68 west of 27. There's no consistency with that. The sign on the church was a 2-face sign, and they couldn't get all their material on what they had planned for Sunday on an 8-foot square sign. Same thing on the radio station sign. 8 square feet wasn't really adequate. 3 of them were in a forest where the limitation in sign size is 18 square feet. We had one from Get Up Sales out there, which is a rather large commercial function. And 18 square feet wasn't really adequate for them. That one was approved. 2 others were denied. One of them was out at the UAW, which was a sign on the corner of the 4-way stop, and they wanted to put in a great big sign, and we turned them down on that. And the other one, the other one was also the use variance. It was a double. It was in both categories. And then there were the ones in the commercial, of which there were 3. One was approved and 2 were denied. The one that was approved was actually the freestanding sign, and the variance that was requested for was for a variance from the requirement that no more than 75% of the sign could be electronic. They had a freestanding sign that was considerably larger than that, and they wanted to reduce the size of the sign by eliminating all but the electronic portion, which was also being reduced in size. So actually the variance was for them to be allowed to have more than 75% of the sign being electronic. One of them was the one that brought this review, and that was Burt Lake Marina, which was turned down. And the other one, let's see, what was that? Meijer. I'll get into the size of that sign because it was several parts to that variance request. But one of them was the size of that sign, and it was considerably larger than what we would allow. They also had, combined with that, a wall sign. And I'm going to hit the wall signs right now before we get back to the 3 freestanding signs in commercial. There were 5 wall signs that were brought before the ZBA in the last 15 years. 4 of them were approved. As a result of that, I brought the wall sign problem to the Planning Commission. We revised the ordinance to allow up to 300 square feet of freestanding wall sign. All of those would have been approved. There wouldn't have been a variance request if that 300 feet had been in effect at that point in time. So those, we've looked at the problem, we changed the regulation. One of them was Meijer again, and that one wouldn't have been even close with the 300 square feet. They were 50% above that. They were over 450 square feet they wanted also. That was denied. So we've got back to the 3 freestanding signs that were in commercial. Meijer was one of them. The Burt Lake Marina was one of them, and the other one was the electronic sign problem. So really, there are only 2 cases in the last 15 years that pertain to a freestanding sign in the commercial district that was in question because of the 80 square foot maximum size. One of them was Meijer, and one of them was Burt Lake Marina. Provisions of regulation, we turned them both down by the ZBA. Now your question is, do you want to revise the sign ordinance for that restriction?
Well, Chuck, thanks for the history. All of us don't have a chance to have that history, but we've got 2 total requests in 15 years for for a change in sign size. And if you look, the reason this came up is the sign at Burt Lake, guy's been in business for a long time, bought a sign that was too large for our ordinance, knowing that, which prompted the request to evaluate this. If we're gonna do anything, I think we should look at the wall signs, get that one taken care of. The rest of the ordinance we spent years on. We could update maybe some of the electronic stuff, but I think if we wanna do something, let's take care of the problem. The roads, the commissioners have asked us to look at that. I'd like to know what the other counties have. Maybe somebody has information on Emmett County. Does anybody know what that is?
Yeah, I had here, in their comparable commercial districts, it looks like Emmett County permits one per parcel, and then the maximum face size is 56 square feet, and the maximum height is 10 feet. Signs located in rights of way shall not exceed 32 square feet and 8 feet in height.
That's Emmett County?
Yes.
Okay, so that's significantly less than we already allowed, like 40%.
It shall not be longer than 4 times the width.
But I mean, you're looking at 56 square feet or whatever. So I think with 2 cases in 15 years, we either decide if we want to revamp everything for that situation, or if we want to take a look at that specific sign and do something with that in the commercial zone.
Do you have anything on the Seagull?
I'd say it goes off with 56. But it's not if you, I drove down 32 yesterday, there's a lot
Enforcement.
larger signs than that.
That Seagull allows for, I think it's up to 100 square feet for like shopping centers, malls, but they don't allow individual signs for the individual tenants. They allow for one sign with individual placards or signs in that parent sign, if you will. That can be, if memory serves, no larger than 100 square feet. I don't recall what the height is there, but
I don't think, Mike, that we need a review on the wall sign, because we changed the ordinance on that to 300 square feet max. And all but one of the requests for variance would have been covered by the 300 square feet.
The freestanding is the one.
Freestanding
Is the one that prompted the request to look at it. So you have to decide.
the others are, you know,
Most of them are minor, you've taken care of some of them already.
one of them was for front setback, only one in 15 years. There was one for use variance in 15 years. We certainly don't want to revise the regulation for those things. Right away, we might want to look at right away. We routinely put in as a condition on special use permits that if it's sign's going to be in the right of way, that they have to get the permission of the county or county road commission or the state. We maybe should write something in here that they don't have to do it in certain circumstances, or if that is just a requirement for all, and then we're going to have to put it in the conditions.
I don't know why you'd want to take it out, it's a major headache.
No,
Okay,
it is.
Could those 2 people that put the request in, could they get a variance? And then
No, those, everything I said were requests for variance.
Oh, they were?
Yes. All the cases I was giving you were requests for variance.
And you denied them?
Depends on which ones you're talking about.
The 2 for the freestanding signs.
Huh?
The 2 for the freestanding signs.
2 in the There were 3 requests for a size variance in the commercial district. 1 was approved and 2 were denied. The one that was approved was based on the degree of the percentage of electronic sign. It wasn't the overall size of the sign, but it was a sign dimension that the variance was requested for. The other 2 were larger than the 80 square feet.
Was there any thought process behind why the square footage difference between light industrial, general industrial, and commercial? Can you elaborate on that at all?
It was the location, I'm going on recollection of when we revised the sign ordinance back in 2015. But,
Right.
basically, it was the fact that the light industrial were small areas separated from the general flow of traffic. You have Moran Iron Works out there, you've got the 2-Fab, you've got the industrial park in Indian River, and you've got the area around the airport. So it was the type of businesses that were allowed there, and the fact that they were basically further off of the right of way. Commercial areas they're centered on the, most of them on the
Right.
center of the roadway. We might also look at the fact that Village Center, Indian River, they had, by their own request, kept their signs smaller than that. I think they're 32 square feet.
Same holds true in top of the,
Yep, on top of it. And 15 height maximum.
Chuck, we should have granted that variance, and all said that.
Yeah. But, am I thinking, the way the regulations are written, I couldn't grant it. The ZBA can grant it, 25. The way the regulations are written. If we decide that should be, the regulations be changed, then we'll have a problem with the ZBA level again. Question. The reason I bring things from the ZBA here is because we've had a consistent problem with regulation.
And you didn't bring that up to us this time because you didn't have a consistent problem. We had 2 in
15
years, so either the ordinance is adequate or we gotta make a change.
This sign that we're talking about that got approved, that, is it, what, I don't know where the sign is, okay?
Now, you wouldn't know, because if you go into the McDonald's, there's a trading post down there. If
Okay,
you go around the back,
okay,
it's between the building and that fence, the
okay,
menu board,
yeah,
that's the sign.
So
You wouldn't even know it's there unless you go through the
okay,
line,
all right,
which was another one of the reasons it was granted,
okay,
the variance.
all right. The one that was originally denied because the sign was more than 75%, is it because of the light factor?
Yeah, it's electronic.
Okay, and so to cut down on the amount of glare or light is the reason that the ordinance was written in the first place, correct?
I think that if we're going to look at various parts of this, that we should eliminate the requirement that no more than 75% of the sign can be electronic.
and if I may, Madam Chair,
Okay.
that's right, and that was a discussion we had at the public hearing.
Yeah.
That the intent of that was to limit the size of digital signage, but it doesn't really cover that intent, because if you have
Well, it
100
does.
square foot sign, then you can have 75 square feet of,
That's right.
digital
But
surface.
it does limit it in that case. We should have
in
just
that
said
case.
that electronic sign can't be more than X number of square feet
Period.
in each district. Period, end of story. And if you want to make it 75% of the total signage, then you say, if it's 100 square feet authorized for a regular sign, you say 75 square feet for an electronic sign.
I'm not, okay.
Right now, we have in the commercial district, a sign, freestanding sign can be 80 square feet,
Right.
okay? The way the regulation is written right now, 60 square feet of that could be electronic. 20 square feet of it would have to be
bezel.
The
Regular-
wood or some other thing around it. or
solid
whatever.
wood or
Yeah.
something else.
Mhm.
If we're trying to eliminate the size or reduce the size of electronic signs, just say that electronic signs can't be over 75 or 60 square feet.
And I want to know why we want to regulate is because of the light? Okay. Okay.
I mean,
Um,
that's a purely a,
I don't remember, 2015. Okay. Are we taking into consideration the speed that people drive down roads when we regulate our sign sizes? Because there's a real correlation between the size of the words and the lettering and stuff for the speed that you're going to be able to see it, and so that as a driver, I'm not looking for something, I
Too
can't
long,
see
right.
it, and then I'm out of my vision. So, I don't remember. Did
That
we do
was
that?
considered, that was considered, and they talked about the sign out here in the little mall. Remember how small it was and how fast it was,
Yeah.
and people had to slow down to read it and those kinds of things.
Right,
So that was
because-
considered.
Okay.
that was one of the reasons why you're allowed larger signs in light industrial and general industrial. Because they're generally
Way up.
Well, yeah.
further off. The traffic by them is faster.
Yeah, I believe there was a discussion about that in the material I provided in the packet, so, yeah, it's a good point and one that absolutely should be considered.
Was the
The
good
Burt
time
Lake
to
Marina
change that?
sign.
Yeah.
Burt Lake Marina sign is in a 45-mile-an-hour zone.
Yeah.
It was in the right-of-way, so it was right by the highway. There were no other signs or vegetation, no
Mhm.
trees, no bushes, no shrubs that
Okay. Yeah.
prevented somebody from seeing it. So,
Set it aside, if we want to change it, keep it as is. If we change it, do we want to make it 100? Do we want to change it to the, I don't think it's a good idea to go to the industrial for what you're saying, possibly make them the same.
well, for light industrial and general industrial is 120. This request was for 100. You know, that's I personally don't think you need a 100 square foot sign in that stretch of road to determine what you're looking at. But that's my personal opinion. There's no other signs in that area anywhere near 100 square feet. Most of them are 4 by 8, 32 square feet.
In our adjacent counties, like you say, is 56, or in the other zones, Coppin and B and Indian River, it's even less than that. And those people wanted them less than that, but it's congested, you know, there's a lot
Well,
of,
the aesthetics are important too.
Right.
That's right.
You know,
wherever it is.
you know, just like I don't know, having 3 signs on a parcel, that, whatever.
Well, there's another thing.
Yeah.
There's another thing you might want to look at. If we do go to a 100 square foot sign, that means that the way the regulation's written right now, they can have 3 100
Yes.
square foot signs. I can see the reason for having 3 large signs in certain circumstances. For instance, the car dealers, where they've got several different makes of cars in the same facility.
Okay.
They might need 3 pylon signs. Now, do they need 3 pylon signs of 100 square feet? I don't think so. But that's me personally again. If you want to increase it from 80 square feet to 100, you want to say that they can only have 1 or 2. But then you're going to have somebody that's got a dealership that's got 3 brands in there, and he's going to come in and say, "Can I have a variance?" And I think he's probably going to get it.
Well, that's a circumstance that consideration of road frontage might play a role in deciding what would be permitted. I mean, typically, large auto dealerships have a lot of linear frontage. And given that, in part, it would seem that, one can make a justification.
Or if there are 3 signs, maybe they aren't going to be 100 square feet, but an 80 or something. I don't
Well,
know.
right now,
I
they're
mean, that's-
authorized 3 80
Yeah, you do.
square foot signs.
Yeah.
So,
So I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
well, I don't,
At this point, I don't know.
it's a policy decision you want to come to.
Yeah.
I got my personal opinions, and I've got my opinions as just a member of the planning commission and looking at the changing regulations. And they're not necessarily the same. I've also got my opinions from the ZBA standpoint, which are not necessarily the same as the other 2.
Maybe we should check 1, check 3.
One of them might have to recuse himself. Maybe 2 of them. I think the question is, do we have a problem with the sign ordinance?
Well, we're gonna have a problem with the board if we don't do something about it. So
Well,
we got 2
we're
choices.
required to review it and if necessary, revise it. Recommend revisions. We don't revise it, we just come up with a revision, send it to them, and they approve it or they disapprove it.
What we have to look at is 2 variances over 15 years, reason to revise it.
That's
the question.
And the one was Meijer, which was turned down, and they were after huge signs. In my own mind, I look at what are you trying to accomplish with a sign? As the owner of a business, what is my objective in putting up a sign? It's to tell people where I am, what I've got for sale, and have them notice it. Now, I obviously could have a billboard put up that would do it, but do I need it? Do I need the whole side of the building devoted to a wall sign when it's a huge building? And in the case of Meijer, it was way back off the road. It was going to be off like Walmart. Well, if you've got a sign out on the road, a pylon sign that tells you Meijer, and you've got to drive in there to see the building, do you need 470 square feet of sign on the building to say who you are. You're already in there, you're in their parking lot. There's no other business back there.
Would it be more appropriate to have a percentage of size of the building or
We've got,
space?
that's in the regulation there. But no more, 10% or no more than 300 square feet.
Okay.
It's right there. And that was brought to the planning commission because of Moran Iron Works out.
Well, yeah, you drive by,
80 square,
well, it's a long ways to the building to see the
the
sign.
restriction on wall signs at that point in time was such that you couldn't even read it.
No,
You couldn't even tell it was a sign on the building. So we tried this regulation, and that took care of wall signs.
So we do we want to put it on our next agenda? It's 2 weeks to think it over and decide what we...
We've got all the information now, the history, got the numbers. I'll move the table at the next meeting.
Motion is support to table the decision until the next meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?